One of the most talented cornerbacks in the NFL has just been released. And now, a question hangs in the air. Should the Las Vegas Raiders make a move? Jaire Alexander is no ordinary player. He's not a fringe starter or a flash-in-the-pan talent. This is a top-tier, elite-level cornerback who can lock down almost anyone in the league. When news broke that Green Bay was letting him go, after failing to trade him, it sent shockwaves through the league. It's not often a player of this caliber hits the open market. So now the spotlight turns to Las Vegas. Should the Raiders, a team with a secondary still shrouded in question marks, seriously consider going after Alexander? On paper, the answer feels obvious. But let's dig deeper. Right now, the Raiders' projected starters at cornerback are Darian Porter, a third-round rookie, and Eric Stokes, a familiar face who played alongside Alexander in Green Bay. While there's hope for both, hope doesn't win games in the NFL. Porter is unproven. Stokes, while talented, has struggled to stay healthy and regain his early career form. Then there's Jacorian Bennett. Intriguing, yes, but still raw. Lonnie Johnson Jr., slated to play in the slot, but consistency has never been his strong suit. And beyond them, the depth gets thin fast. Names like Cameron Richardson, John Humphrey, and Mello Dotson, all young, unproven, or undrafted. This is the reality. The Raiders' secondary isn't solidified. It's uncertain. It's full of maybes, potential, and we'll see. Jaire Alexander, on the other hand, is not a maybe. He's a sure thing. A technician in coverage, physical, fast, tough, and most importantly, versatile. This isn't a guy limited to one scheme. Whether it's man, zone, press, or off-ball, Alexander can do it all. He's not just talented, he's adaptable. That's what makes him elite. Some corners are system-dependent. Richard Sherman, as great as he was, needed that cover 3 in Seattle to thrive. Jaire? Plug him into any defense in the league and he'll still shut receivers down. So, should the Raiders make a call? Absolutely, even if Darian Porter develops. Even if Eric Stokes bounces back, even if Bennett takes a leap, adding a player like Alexander doesn't just patch a hole. It elevates the entire unit. He brings leadership, swagger, experience, and he gives the Raiders something they haven't had in years, a true number one. One corner teams fear. If Las Vegas wants to take that next step, if they want to stop letting elite quarterbacks slice through their defense, this is the kind of move that makes a difference. Jaire Alexander won't be on the market long. If the Raiders are serious about building a defense that can win in January, they need to act like it. Jaire Alexander is on the open market. No trade. No giving up draft capital. No tricky negotiations over picks. You're not sacrificing a third or a fourth. You're simply signing one of the league's best corners for cash alone. That's a rare opportunity. But there's a reason teams hesitated. It wasn't just the cost. It was the contract. Alexander carries a hefty deal and he's battled injuries over the past few seasons. That injury history makes teams nervous, and rightfully so. Raiders fans have seen this before. Nate Hobbs, another talented corner, struggled to stay on the field, and durability matters. So now the question becomes, is it worth the risk? The Raiders have made it clear they prefer dependability, availability over potential. A solid player for 17 games is better than a star who suits up for 8. That's part of why someone like Jacorian Bennett is still in the mix. Not because he's a proven star, but because he's healthy and on the field. The staff trusts who they can see, who they can evaluate, who they can rely on. Still, there's no denying the appeal of Alexander. He's elite, and when he's right, he changes everything. Would I take the gamble? Absolutely. He's the kind of player who doesn't just start, he leads, he inspires, he shifts the tone of a defense. And while we're dreaming, imagine pairing him with Jalen Ramsey. Now, to be clear, Ramsey hasn't been released. He's still under contract with Miami, but there's uncertainty there. Post-June 1st, the Dolphins could look to restructure, trade, or even move on. It's unclear how that situation will unfold. But imagine, just imagine, the Raiders landing both Ramsey and Alexander, even on short-term deals. Maybe a 2-year contract for Alexander, with 1 year guaranteed and a team option on the second. Maybe you give up a third-round pick to bring in Ramsey. Suddenly, the Raiders' secondary becomes a strength, not a liability, not a hope, a weapon. Cap space isn't the issue. The Raiders have room. The real question is, how badly do they want to fix this defense? Because right now, the unit still has holes. not just in the secondary, but at linebacker too. Devin White and Elandon Roberts are expected to start. But let's be honest, both players are past their peak. White might be just 26, but he entered the league at 20 and has racked up wear and tear. That speed he once flashed coming out of LSU, the 4.440, the explosion, it's not quite the same. He's lost a step. That's not hate. That's reality. Roberts? A seasoned vet with leadership qualities? Yes. But are the Raiders really ready to lean on him to play 100% of defensive snaps? That's what it's come to. A defense full of maybes. Maybe Bennett takes the next step. Maybe Stokes bounces back. Maybe White regains that burst. But in the NFL, maybes don't win you playoff games. Proven playmakers do. That's why a player like Alexander matters. And that's why, if the Raiders are serious about taking this defense from patchwork to powerhouse, they need to act like it. Oh, and one more thing. Germaine Pratt was just released. He was a top 10 tackler last year, per Tom Pelissero. Another name worth watching. Another piece potentially up for grabs. The opportunities are out there. Now it's on the Raiders to decide if they're going to keep waiting or start building a defense fans can believe in. Germaine Pratt just hit the market, a team captain, a productive veteran, a top 10 tackler in the league last season. And while he's on the older side, make no mistake, he can still play. Now the question becomes, is he worth a look? The Raiders need help at linebacker. That's no secret. They've patched things together with Devin White and Elandon Roberts, but both are veteran stopgaps. Reliable in the short term, sure. But long-term solutions? Unlikely. Of the three, Pratt may be the most well-rounded at this stage of his career. He brings leadership, experience, and consistent tackling. But here's the truth. They're all cut from the same cloth. Veteran linebackers closer to their end than their beginning. That's why the bigger picture conversation is about youth. The Raiders brought in Cody Lindenberg this year. Last year, it was Tommy Eichenberg. Neither player is ready to start. Not yet. Eichenberg, in particular, didn't flash much as a rookie. In fact, Amari Gaynor looked better, faster, more decisive. If there's a dark horse to emerge as a long-term starter, it might be Gaynor, not Eichenberg. But even with young talent waiting in the wings, there's a real argument for adding someone like Pratt. A steady presence in the middle, a linebacker who can clean up the mess. He's not flashy, but he gets the job done. And in a linebacker room full of maybes, that counts for something. There's also the salary cap to consider. The Raiders are flush with cap space. For now. But those dollars aren't just sitting idle. Max Crosby's deal escalates each year. Christian Wilkins' contract will too. Colton Miller wants an extension. And down the line, the team will need to pay Brock Bowers, Ashton Jeanty, and maybe even Malcolm Kuntz, who could be in line for a $25 million payday if he continues to ascend. So the Raiders are playing the long game, rolling over cap space into 2026 and beyond, building the war chest, planning for tomorrow. But here's the thing. You can't lose today chasing the future. Jaire Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, Germaine Pratt. These aren't reckless moves, they're calculated upgrades. All three could start tomorrow. All three would raise the floor of this defense. The Raiders aren't looking for stars anymore. They're looking for solutions. And there's a bonus. Pratt has connections in the locker room. He played college ball with Jacoby Myers and A.J. Cole. Chemistry counts, familiarity counts, leadership counts. This defense doesn't need a miracle. It just needs answers. Pratt could be one of them. PFF's center rankings and the Jackson Powers-Johnson disrespect. Let's shift gears. There's been a lot of talk recently about Pro Football Focus and their latest center rankings. Two fans asked me directly, did you see where they ranked Jackson Powers-Johnson? 17th. 17th. Let's clear something up first. This isn't PFF's internal consensus. It's not their company stance. It's the opinion of a single writer, Mason Cameron. He authored the article. This is his list, not some official verdict handed down from the analytics gods at PFF headquarters. Still, it's frustrating. JPJ is better than that. Creed Humphrey at number 1, ? No argument there. Tyler Linderbaum at number 2, ? Fair enough. Zach Frasier, strong young player. Eric McCoy, solid. Drew Dahlman, serviceable. Aaron Brewer, underrated. But Powers-Johnson, he's already shown flashes that he's better than many of those guys. This is a young center with rare power, a wrestling background, and the kind of nasty streak you want anchoring the middle of your line. His footwork is ahead of schedule. His hands are violent. His awareness is climbing fast. Yes, he's a rookie, but his ceiling is higher than half the names ahead of him, and his floor might be too. PFF might not see it yet, but fans do, coaches do, teammates do, and once the pads come on, Jackson Powers Johnson will show it. There's a name that keeps showing up in these PFF rankings. Jackson Powers Johnson, ranked 17th. It's wrong. Plain and simple. Let's walk through it. Ryan Kelly, solid. Jenkins, one of the better interior linemen over the last few years, though mostly a guard. Hjalte Froholt out of Arizona, his first season at center. And yes, he held his own. Joe Tippmann, a former first-rounder, but hasn't lived up to expectations yet. And then there's Connor Bozick. Good hands, technically sound, but light in the anchor. He reminds me of Andre James. Useful, but gets pushed around. There's no world where Bozick is better than Powers Johnson. Different tier, different planet. But the biggest head-scratcher? Cam Jurgens ranked 13th. That's when you know something's off. Cam Jurgens is a top 2 center in the NFL. Creed Humphrey is number 1. Jurgens is right there with him. The Philadelphia Eagles made that clear when they handed him a market-setting deal. You don't become the league's highest-paid center unless you've earned it, unless your tape demands it. If Howie Roseman opens the checkbook for a lineman, it's because he knows what he has. Jurgens is elite. The ranking doesn't reflect reality, and Powers Johnson at 17? That's just lazy. Let's take a closer look. Mason Cameron, the author behind these rankings, admits JPJ's rookie year produced mixed results due to time split between center and guard. But when he did play center, he posted a 70.7 PFF grade, a top 12 mark at the position. That's not average. That's borderline elite for a rookie. In fact, when you isolate his center snaps, that grade likely puts him closer to top 5 or 6 in the league. And he's doing that as a first-year player, not someone 3 or 4 years into their development arc. Now here's the interesting twist. Powers Johnson and Zach Frasier came out of the same draft class. The Raiders took JPJ first. The Steelers followed with Frasier. And let's be honest, Steelers fans wanted Powers Johnson. They knew. Frasier was the fallback, a very, very good one, but not the first choice. Frasier's a technician, a grinder, a classic product of West Virginia's elite offensive line development. Their O-line coach, name escapes me, but the resume speaks for itself, consistently puts out NFL-ready linemen. That program produces maulers. So yes, Frasier deserves top 5 consideration. But here's where these rankings fall apart. You're telling me Mason Cameron sat down and watched every starting center in the NFL? Watched their full tape? Their footwork, leverage, combo blocks, pass sets, recovery reps, hand placement, blitz pickups, all of them? 32 centers, plus the backups. Multiply that across every position. Quarterbacks, wideouts, corners, safeties, guards, tackles, linebackers. That's 500-plus players, minimum. It's not realistic, which is why these rankings feel disconnected from the film. Here's what I do watch. Tape. Hours of it. Offensive line, in particular. Centers, guards, tackles, college and NFL. It's the foundation of every take I make. And I'm telling you, Jackson Powers Johnson is different. He's not just good. He's special. The last time I watched an interior lineman with this level of core strength, grip torque, and football IQ as a rookie, it was Penei Sewell. And that's saying something. We're talking about a lineman who could anchor a unit for a decade. Not solid, not serviceable, elite. So go ahead, rank him 17th. But by season's end, everyone will know where he really belongs. Top 5, maybe top 3. He's that good. If I'm stacking NFL centers today, here's how my top 3 looks. Creed Humphrey at number 1, Cam Jurgens at number 2, Jackson Powers Johnson at number 3 for now. But I'll go further. Powers Johnson might surpass both of them. He's tracking toward it. When Creed Humphrey entered the league, he was a physical technician, a center who could torque defenders out of gaps and win with both brains and brute force. JPJ is doing the same, maybe with even more nastiness. Same tenacity, same anchor. And the scary part? He's only getting started. Now, not every high-profile center is playing to that standard. Take Tyler Linderbaum. Solid on paper, but on tape he gets moved too often. Doesn't hold up well against power. And while PFF likes his work, I don't trust those grades. Too often, they miss the nuance. The Falcons, for example, replaced Drew Dahlman, who graded well by PFF, with little hesitation. Why? Because they knew what they were getting from the scheme and from the offensive line coach. Not because Dahlman was irreplaceable. Good player? Yes. Fifth best center in the league? I'd challenge that. Same goes for players like Cooper Beebe, who's ranked far too low, and Lloyd Cushenberry, all the way down at 20? That's absurd. Cushenberry's a top 10 center, has been. Consistency, pass protection, communication, he brings it all. And then there's Graham Barton, another top 10 center. He was actually drafted before Jackson Powers Johnson. That's right. Tampa Bay's JohnSpytek made that decision. I don't agree with it, but the pick's made. The debate now belongs to time. At the end of the day, these rankings come from one writer, one opinion. No team sources, no film breakdowns. Just a list. So take it for what it is. Before we wrap, there's one last story I want to touch on. Damon Arnette, the former first-round cornerback the Raiders took 19th overall, is trying to make his way back into the NFL. According to Aaron Wilson, Arnette recently worked out for the Houston Texans after spending time with the UFL's Houston Roughnecks. Yes, that Damon Arnette. It's news that caught me off guard. He's been out of the league for years, and not without reason. Let's be honest, Arnette's time with the Raiders was a disaster. Talent wasn't the issue. Commitment was. He didn't take the game seriously. Multiple off-field incidents, arrests, drugs, public videos where he openly disrespected the organization and the league. He just wasn't ready for the responsibility that comes with the NFL. But here's the thing, and I know not every Raiders fan will agree. I hope he makes it back. It doesn't change what he did. It doesn't erase how much he let this franchise down. But redemption matters. If he's truly changed, if he's put in the work and matured, then maybe he deserves a second chance. It won't fix the mistake the Raiders made at pick 19. That damage is done. But for Damon Arnette, the person, if this is his shot at doing it right, I hope he takes it. Because the NFL doesn't need perfect people. It needs people willing to grow. Spending time around players, especially younger ones, gives you a different perspective. You start to see how many of these guys, even though they're technically adults, still carry the mindset of kids. They're 20, 21, 22 years old, and yes, they're professionals. But mentally, emotionally, a lot of them are still figuring life out. And that's where Damon Arnette's story fits. At Ohio State, he was protected, coddled, treated like a star. When he entered the NFL, that structure disappeared, and he wasn't ready for the responsibility that came with the transition. He lacked maturity, and the Raiders paid the price for it. But credit to him, he's been working to change that. This isn't some desperate last grab for money. By all indications, Arnette still has enough to live on. He's been competing in the UFL for the past couple of years, grinding, rebuilding his name. This season alone, he's played in 8 games, posted 18 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, and even recorded a pick 6, a 51-yard return. That's not nothing. That's work. Now, whether the NFL will give him another shot, that's not up to fans or media. It's up to the Texans. It's up to coaches and personnel departments who need to decide whether the player, and more importantly, the person, is ready to return. Personally, I hope he is. It doesn't erase what happened in Las Vegas. That chapter is what it is. But if Damon Arnette has genuinely grown, and if he can contribute the right way, then maybe redemption isn't out of reach. As the Raiders look ahead, to training camp, to final roster decisions, there are still questions on the table. Free agency remains an option. Evaluations continue at key positions like center. And at the heart of it all is a young offensive lineman who could anchor the next decade of Raiders football. Jackson Powers Johnson isn't just ready for the NFL. He's ready to define what comes next.